Good morning. Oh, fine, very fine. So there has been an improvement of exact 5 minutes today. I have come earlier. So in the last class, that was also the first class, we generally talked about the approaches, the books, and some themes like prehistory, proto-history, history. We also talked about archaeology, some archaeological processes. Then we, I think, shifted to our general plan related to prehistory. And we identified those areas which may be important for us. I think the plan was something like this, that we have 5 cultural patterns which are prehistoric. That simply means without art of writing. Paleolithic, second Mesolithic, third Neolithic, fourth Chalcolithic, and then the fifth one, that is Megalithic. Now we have to look at these words not as distinct time brackets, but as stages of cultural evolution characterized by some tendencies, characterized by some traits. Is this clear? Now we can take note of their chronology. This is what we discussed in the last class. With this we can also include phases, if any. We can take note of their material findings, tools. We can take note of human species, and we know the reason why, because this represents nothing but human resource at that time required for marking their stages of development. Then we have to take note of climate also for the same reason, that we have to pay attention to natural resources, possibilities which were available in the nature. Based on this, we can take note of some details related to their subsistence pattern. We can also take note of their settlement pattern. Here in settlement pattern, we identified certain things like geographical distribution, ecological conditions, and their habitational structures. And we can also take note of any other development associated with these stages of cultural development. Is this plan clear to all of you? And this was part of our discussion, to know what to know. Is this position clear? Now we can take note of these cultural stages one by one. So let us begin with the Paleolithic. Now we know beforehand what we have to know about the Paleolithic. Point wise we can proceed if you so wish, otherwise we can write paragraphs also. Let us proceed point wise. So about Paleolithic, write the first point. The oldest, the oldest phase of the Stone Age, the oldest phase of the Stone Age, which was also the longest, the oldest phase, which was also the longest phase of the prehistoric past, longest phase of the prehistoric past. In the Indian subcontinent, keep on writing in the same point, this is about chronology. In the Indian subcontinent, The phase is usually placed between in the Indian subcontinent. The phase is usually placed between 2 million years ago, 2 MYA, this is how we write it, that is around 2 million years ago, and 10,000 BP. 2 million years ago and 10,000 BP. I hope understand BP. Certainly it is not blood pressure. It is something more than this. So BP here is, are you comfortable about these terms like AD, BC, BP? Or do you want me to explain this? Okay, BP here is, it is used for what we can say, before present, before present. But then how to determine what is present? So usually historians accept the middle of the previous century, that is 20th century, the time around 1950, to mark the present while making calculations. We can usually take note of, we can't be very precise also when we deal with such a remote past, but we can still think in terms of centuries, that is almost 2000 years after Jesus, isn't it? Now it is something like this. If we see, this is the timeline, and suppose this is the time of Jesus. This is not about birth, this is not about death. We can simply say time of Jesus. So time can be calculated like this. We can say 100 years after Jesus, before Jesus, 200 years before Jesus. Why Jesus? Because in Gregorian calendar, his birth or his time is supposed to be an important time. In different cultures, we can have different eras. You must be knowing. In India also we have Shaka era, we have Vikrami era. So it is part of the same. So in the same way, we can take note of 100 years after Jesus, 200 years after Jesus. Now this 100, how to differentiate? So here we use the term BC, this side we use the term AD. Is this understood? Now we have reached till 2024. So while looking back upon the past, at times we include even this 2000 years also. So when we start making or using our own time, that is middle of the 20th century or the 21st century, then we use the term before present. Present is here. It means BC can be converted into BP or not. Tell me 5000 BP, convert it into BC. 5000 BP to be converted into BC. 3000 BC. Is this understood? It is something like this. Then you must be knowing about something that is called Circa. CIRCA. So it is written something like this, circa 1950 or maybe any other year. So that simply means around this time. Is this understood? So BC is clear, BP is clear, this circa is also clear. Then there is one more thing we should know, that is called regnal year. REGNAL, regnal year. So generally we find rulers starting new eras, new calendars with the dates of their coronation. So if we say Ashok in his 7th regnal year, that simply means 7 years after his coronation to the throne. Is this position clear? So after qualifying for civil services, you can also have your own regnal year. Getting this? After 2 years of my what result, something like this. Understood that? So what we have written here about chronology, that Paleolithic stage of cultural development in the Indian subcontinent can be placed between 2 million years ago and around 10,000 BP. That is around 12,000 BC. Understood? Now I am going to remove this, and now you have to keep that in your mind. If I miss something, you have to remind me. I have shared what I wanted to. This is the plan. Accordingly, we are going to proceed. Is this understood? Some mental rehearsal. So now tell me, what do you want to know about Paleolithic after knowing its chronology? What about the phases? Phases are also there. So this is what we need to remember. Once we have conceptual framework, our memories are facilitated. The problem with rote memorization is that it lacks what we can say the cues. And when you don't have cues, so it becomes very difficult. We are not Xerox machines. We are human beings. And our minds also work according to some principles. We have a natural way of functioning. So you can't make it to behave in a very artificial manner for some results which you think to be desired, but they may be unwarranted also. So stay comfortable with the mental tendencies. Is this position clear? So now write second point. Second point is about the phases. At the Paleolithic stage of cultural development, the Paleolithic stage of cultural development is characterized by the Paleolithic stage of cultural development is characterized by the following subcultural phases. Following subcultural phases, right? Lower Paleolithic, Middle Paleolithic, and the Upper Paleolithic. Why the use of the terms like lower, middle, and upper? Yesterday we talked about archaeology. We talked about stratigraphical studies. So in archaeological excavations, different stratas, so lowest strata, the middle strata, and the upper strata. So we have these terms like lower, middle, and upper. Now which one can be the latest of all these subcultural phases? The most advanced of all subcultural phases? Upper. And if I say which one is, if I ask which one is the longest? Lower. Why longest? Because as we go back in the past, what we find is the pace of cultural development slows down. With time, our capacity to make development has also increased. Getting this idea? Due to accumulated wisdom of the human race, due to our common historical experiences. Now their chronology is specifically not needed. They are part of the same time bracket. Then write next. Or you can add just one line here after writing these 3 points. These subcultural phases have been identified. These subcultural phases have been identified on the basis of these subcultural phases have been identified on the basis of their on the basis of the changing nature of their, on the basis of the changing nature of their tools, changing nature of their tools. Clear? So now we have to take note of three types of tools which are associated with the three subcultural phases of the Paleolithic, isn't it? So in the next point, we are going to take note of the tools of the lower Paleolithic, then further middle Paleolithic, and then upper Paleolithic. So we are going to have a tool kit for the whole Paleolithic. Is this understood? So write the next point. The tools of lower Paleolithic, the tools of lower Paleolithic are the tools of the lower Paleolithic are termed as core tools or pebble flakes, core tools or pebble flakes, which are heavier and cruder, technologically not very sophisticated. That is quite understandable, which are heavier and cruder. Clear? Why heavier and cruder and why core tools? Because they are made of the cores of the stones. What does it mean? Suppose I am a Paleolithic man and I have to make a tool. So what I am going to do? I am going to strike these two pieces of stones against each other, something which is a part of the attempt to find desired shape. Must be knowing technology and task both are interrelated. First, tasks develop in mind and then we find technology to solve them. So the degree of complication of tools also reflects what we can say the nature and the degree of progress made by that time. So their tasks were also very simple. They were not to perform what we can say very complicated tasks on the basis of these tools. So suppose these two pieces of stones are struck against each other. So something may chip away from either of them. Getting this? So what is left in my hand is the main stone, that is the core. And what is chipped away can be known as flake, F-L-A-K-E. Now Paleolithic mind was preoccupied with the core. It could not think that even flakes can be used as tools. And that's why their tools are heavier, their tools are cruder, and we call them core tools. Understand this? Then write in the same point. These tools are identified as, or these tools include, identified as, these tools are identified as chopper chopping. These tools are identified as chopper chopping, hand axes, and cleavers, cleavers. Their exact use cannot be determined, as we understand that we don't have sources to reconstruct the past in such a precise manner. So we identify them as chopper chopping, hand axes, and cleavers. Clear? Right? The oldest tools of this phase, which phase? The lower Paleolithic. The oldest tools of this phase have been discovered at Rivat. Rivat is now in Pakistan. At Rivat, situated in the basin of the Son or Sohan river. situated in the basin of BASIN of the Son or Sohan river, which flows through Potwar Plateau. I hope I have written the spelling of Plateau correctly. Which flows through the Potwar Plateau in the northwestern parts of the subcontinent, that is modern Pakistan, in the northwestern parts of the subcontinent. Northwestern parts of the subcontinent. So now we have a site. This is the first site in our life, isn't it? Related to history. And that site is Rivat. Why this site is important? Because the tools we discover here are seen as the oldest tools of the Paleolithic. It simply means the chronology that we have determined that Paleolithic in India range from 2 million years ago to 10,000 BP is largely determined on the basis of the tools belonging to this place. Is this position clear? Right? These tools, resume your writing and write. These tools, in the same point we are proceeding. These tools are known as the tools of Sohan industry. These tools are known as the tools of Sohan industry. What is industry? How many of you are engineers here? So, what is industry? It is not the industry you work in. The term industry is used when we have technological similarity in performing some tasks. You must have heard of one more term that is called schools, like sociological school, psychological school, Marxist school, nationalist school, isn't it? So it is something similar. Schools are formed when we have a group of scholars, thinkers, who share some assumptions, who follow similar methods and reach similar conclusions. So we have schools. So we have a school of Marxist historians who rely upon what is known as dialectical materialism to understand the complications of history. Likewise, during the national movement, we find, or when we talk about the historiography of national movement, we find a school which is known as the nationalist school. Then we have subaltern school. So understand this. So likewise, this takes place in the realm of ideas. But if similar things take place in the realm of technology, we have something that is known as industry. Common way to perform some tasks. Is this understood? So what we have written, these tools are known as the tools of which industry? Sohan industry. Can you think of some questions based on the details we have discussed till now? It is just mental exercise. Stretch yourself. Try to make some questions based on the details shared with you till now in this class. Tools available? Paleolithic? How? Hand access. Okay, so what he is saying is they can give us. Can I modify what you have said? And if I am wrong, please stop me, okay? I am trying to read your mind. You have some question in your mind. So it may be something like this. They can give us a list of the Paleolithic tools, or not Paleolithic tools, Stone Age tools. Clear? Or Paleolithic tools also, because we still have Middle Paleolithic and Lower Paleolithic, and the tools we have mentioned belong to only the Lower Paleolithic. So they can give us a list of the Paleolithic tools or the tools of a Stone Age, and then they can ask you question like what? Which of the above mentioned tools belong to the lower Paleolithic? Isn't it? Any other question coming up in your mind? Am I right in defining your question? Okay, thank you so much for giving me the idea. Then, anyone else? Okay, subcultural phases. So they can ask you matching kind of questions also, isn't it? Based on subcultural phases, which tools belong to which subcultural phase? This question is basically the same in the spirit. Because what he has talked about and what we are talking about is nothing but a subcultural phase of the Paleolithic. So the way we can have questions related to lower Paleolithic, we can also have questions related to middle and upper Paleolithic phases of the cultural development. So essentially the same. Any other question? Any other format coming up in your mind? Okay, places are important in history. So in which river basin of the Indian subcontinent the oldest Paleolithic tools have been discovered? Getting this? Now A, Gangetic Basin, B, Narmada Basin, C, Godavari Basin, D, the basin of Sohan River. Which one is the correct answer? Getting this idea? Think of more questions. We have plenty of materials to think of questions. Plateau, yes. Chota Nagpur Plateau, Potwar Plateau, spaces. Geographical markers are important in history. So, Chota Nagpur, which part has produced the oldest Paleolithic tools in the subcontinent? A, Chota Nagpur Plateau, B, Potwar Plateau, C, Delhi Plateau, D, Hyderabad Plateau. I have distorted the geography of this country for the sake of finding easy options for you. So, I should be forgiven for that. Delhi is not a plateau. I think Hyderabad is a plateau. It is part of a plateau, but what about the Hyderabad city? I don't know that. So, which plateau or which part has produced the oldest Paleolithic tools? Very obvious answer, Potwar Plateau. In which region we find the earliest human habitation? A, South India, B, Northeastern India, C, the Central India, D, the Northwestern India. Northwestern India. That is implied here. So understand this. So this is how, whenever you read something, try to process that in form of a specific questions and answers. Instead of going through the rubbish questions available in the market, be creative enough to make some questions, because it is not about the content. It is basically about the process and processing. Is this understood? So now let us proceed further. These tools found at Rivat are the oldest Paleolithic tools in the subcontinent. But then we can also take note of the earliest discovery. It is not necessary that oldest tools are also the ones which were discovered the earliest. I hope you understand this. So continue writing in the same, right? The lower Paleolithic tools, in the same point we are proceeding, the lower Paleolithic tools were first discovered. The lower Paleolithic tools were first discovered by, here the person is also important, by, name of that person is that is the effect of Covishield. He was a geologist, an engineer in railway department. Sorry, railway was being laid down and some excavations were going on. So meanwhile he discovered this. Since I have the knowledge of the context, it did not take me few seconds to remember his name or to recall his name. Name is Sir Robert Bruce Foote. So right, discovered by Sir Robert B-R-U-C-E Bruce F-O-O-T-E. A geologist. He was not even a historian or archaeologist. A geologist at Pallavaram. In the recent books, we have one more name. Write that also. Athiram Pakkam. Maybe Athiram Pakkam, the district or the taluka. Athiram Pakkam, district. So Athiram Pakkam in Tamil Nadu. That is near Madras, modern Chennai, in Tamil Nadu. In 1860s, here the year is 1863 to be precise. But while writing things, we should not be that much precise in what we can say, mentioning dates unless until the context is demanding that. Is this question clear? Whenever we read something and whenever we come across cluttered facts and details, what is our approach? We try to skip because we are less interested in data, more interested in conclusions. Isn't it? And data is meaningless unless until reduced to some meaningful conclusions. So conclusions we find in the beginning of paragraphs, towards the end of the paragraphs, and in the middle we have what? Facts and details supporting them. Which year, this year production was this much. It is something like this. So you can develop a reading style this way also. Whenever you understand things, you understand what is happening. Yesterday I gave you the example of a barat also, a marriage ceremony, if you remember. So when you understand what is happening, you can skip data. That is a way for faster reading, but that is to be done not in the first reading, but in the second reading. If you understand the context, then you can avoid the details. First, try to understand what is happening. Once we understand what is happening, we can have layered understanding of things. You first try to learn the concepts, and then with the help of those concepts, try to retain the details. If you start with retaining the details without learning the concept, you are going to waste your resources. Is this question clear? If you understand the total scheme of the chapter, it's okay. If you understand what has been the theme of this chapter, that is okay in the beginning. Move to the next chapter. And that is a smart way of reading also. You first go through the list of the content. Try to understand their interrelations. Getting this? And then gradually unfold yourself. From headings to subheadings to then what? The details. So gradually you have to penetrate down the subject. But in the very beginning, if you penetrate down the subject to the bottom and you try to take note of the micro details, what will happen? Will not have sufficient coverage. And in this preparation, coverage is more important. Is this understood? So, Pallavaram, Athiram Pakkam, 1863, we have written 1860s. Right, he was a geologist. His occupation is also asked at times. He was a geologist. Any geologist here in this class? Any chemist here in this class? Any doctor? Any Homo sapiens sapiens? Almost all of you. That may be your self-concept. You can be perceived differently by others, isn't it? So, Pallavaram Athiram Pakkam. So, he was a geologist who came to be regarded as, resume your writing and write. He was a geologist who came to be regarded as, who came to be regarded as the father of, father, in bracket you can also write Papa, if you so wish. That is, my job is to give you options, isn't it? Regarded as the father of Indian, father of Indian prehistory. Now prehistory becomes a baby. Father of Indian prehistory. We have this habit of looking at scholars and thinkers like this, isn't it? So these two sides, right? The right, the first tool discovered by him was this way, right? The first tool discovered by him was a hand axe. Hand axe, which belongs to the right, this complicated term, Acheulean industry. Acheulian. I hope I have written the spelling correctly. Acheulean industry. We just talked about Sohan industry. Now we are coming across another industry. Now there is a very intriguing thing in history. Today the world is well connected. We have modern means of transport and communication. Lot of sharing, lot of caring in terms of both ideas, technology, resources, isn't it? That was not the situation in the Paleolithic time, in the prehistoric time. Bands of Homo sapiens sapiens found scattered across the globe with major concentration, we can say, in those areas which are today known as equatorial areas. Their climate was more favorable. But despite this isolated existence, human mind behaved almost in the same way in similar circumstances. Getting this? Perhaps even today, we find something universal about what we can say the human reasoning. So we notice a striking similarity in the techniques of tool making across the world. So Indian Paleolithic is not very much different from what we can say the European Paleolithic. And so we have this concept which is known as world archaeology. When we talk about archaeology, the whole world is united by some certain things which are noticed commonly in almost all parts of the world. Is this understood? So we have identified an industry which is known as, the name written on the board, Acheulean industry, on the basis of tools discovered from a place known as Acheules in France. So the tools discovered at Madras bearing similarities with the tools discovered in France. So in world archaeology, the tools of Madras industry, now Pallavaram is also called Madras industry, have similarity with the Acheulean industry. Is this understood or not? So what we have written, it was a hand axe which belonged to the Acheulean industry. Now full stop and then write, thus the Madras industry, here what does it mean, Madras industry? Hand axe. Thus the Madras industry reflects some affinity with, affinity, affinity with the European, European, European. Here in bracket you can write French, European Paleolithic, European Paleolithic. So now we have a toolkit for the lower Paleolithic consisting of three major types. What? Hand axes, cleavers, chopper chopping. Two major industries, Sohan industry and Madras industry. Two major sites, Rivat because the oldest tools, and Pallavaram or Athiram Pakkam important because it is type site, we can say. Earliest discovery represents nothing but what? Type site. We talked about archaeology in the last class. So, which one is the type site for Paleolithic? The answer is Pallavaram or Athiram Pakkam. Is this understood? Now, in the next point, we are going to take note of the Middle Paleolithic. And forget about those unnecessary details like their shapes, their sizes, specific techniques. That is not that much required. Our difficulty is just one, that UPSC can ask anything. So ideal position, as I told you in the last class, the ideal position is that we should know everything. But the problem is that we can't know everything. So we have to prioritize. We have to channelize our resources in more productive directions. This is the task. This is the secret of UPSC preparation. And with increased awareness, with a sense of discrimination, with time, we do develop this kind of discrimination. What may be important, what may not be important. Once we reach that stage, we say preparation is okay now. Is this position clear? So rest of the details we are ignoring. We are ignoring for a reason. There may be some fear in your mind. What if they ask you questions belonging to some other things related to them? So then simply we are not going to attempt those questions. Getting this idea? We have lot of options. 75 marks is the cutoff. Don't forget this. So don't promise something to yourself which we cannot deliver. We are not supposed to top in the preliminary examination. Or do you want to top in it? That is first rank in PT 2025. That is fruitless labor, we can say. Once you qualify, then everyone is what? At the level playing field. So you can qualify with the minimum cutoff marks also. Getting this? And after that, save your energy and channelize that energy to the main examination. The problem becomes very dangerous when we start considering PT to be main. Don't you think this is stupid logic? Most of the time, while preparing for this exam, we are preoccupied with PT. Don't you think this is quite ironical also? We make PT our main examination. PT preparation our main preparation. UPSC is very boldly and clearly telling that this is preliminary examination and main examination is going to be organized after that. But we don't prepare mainly for main examination. We prepare mainly for PT. Basically, we are going to disqualify ourselves. As simple as this. But then when we are in fear, some obvious facts what we ignore just for temporary emotional relief and emotional satisfaction. So you're too afraid of not qualifying this exam, please leave this preparation. Getting this idea? If you're too insecure about this, please leave this preparation, save your time because you are going to pay opportunity cost. You enter this field only when you have the confidence, you are confident enough to accept the things which are coming up in your life. Don't begin this preparation with a very insecure and uncertain and fearful mind. And if you think you can't handle this, leave this field. Do something which can give you more relief. Because the critical mental faculties which are required for this preparation are going to be compromised when you are in the grip of fear, anxiety and uncertainty. You will not be able to do the tasks, will not be able to perform the tasks which are needed to be performed for qualifying this exam. So if you think that you are not mentally tough enough to deal with uncertainties and all those things, so the better way is to leave, because this is going to be a tough journey for you. So this is a sincere advice. If you are not serious about this preparation, leave the preparation. Life is greener on other side also. It is not only about BPSC, but when you are here, so naturally you have to be strong. You have to display some qualities which are very rare. Or at least you should not be fearful of the future. Because most of the time fear of failure is something which prevents us from doing the things which are required. So instead of reading books and understanding them, you will be thinking about what? Either you will be romanticizing your success. Once I qualify, I will be doing this, I will be doing that. Or you will be simply in the state of frustration. So bipolar disease. At one side we have frustration, and then we have what? Unrealistic expectations and romanticization. This is not preparation. Is this position clear? So what we are talking about is, now we have to talk about the middle Paleolithic. So here details are not that much in plenty, so write just in one line in the next point, and that point is going to be about middle Paleolithic. So write this way. The tools of middle Paleolithic, the tools of middle Paleolithic, the tools of middle Paleolithic first discovered by H.D. Sankalia. Some of you may be knowing this name. First discovered by, he was an archaeologist, H.D. Sankalia at Nevasa. Another site is coming at Nevasa. Nevasa is in Maharashtra. At Nevasa are identified as flake tools, F-L-A-K-E-S, identified as the flake tools. So now we have flakes also as part of Paleolithic, H.D. Sankalia, Nevasa. Then write in the same point. The tools of upper Paleolithic are identified as, simply write the names, tools of upper Paleolithic. In the same point we are proceeding. The tools of upper Paleolithic are identified as, the tools of upper Paleolithic are identified as BLADES, blades, and BURINS, blades and burins. Clear? So now how many tools belonging to the Paleolithic? Chopper chopping, hand axes, cleavers, flakes, blades and burins. Now the Paleolithic toolkit is complete for us. Now next point, and next point should be about, you tell me, I don't know, I have forgotten everything. What do you want to know now about Paleolithic? Have questions in your mind before you approach sources. Human species. Are you really interested in knowing about human species? No. Okay, right. That I have mentioned somewhere in the whole scheme. That is included, but this is not the right place for that. See, that is part of settlement pattern, geographical distribution. We are proceeding according to the plan we made in the last class. So I have kept a space for that also. But after this third, we have to take note of human species, isn't it? I just want this scheme to be what? Uploaded in your brain, in your software. So write the three subcultural phases in the next point. The three subcultural phases. No industry as such, no important discoverer, no important year, so leave it. Earlier tools are more important because of their, what we can say, primacy effect. It is first discovered. So what we have written? Yes, the three subcultural phases of the Paleolithic. The three subcultural phases of the Paleolithic are associated with three distinct human species, are associated with three distinct human species mentioned below in order, mentioned below, BELOW, mentioned below in order. That is, the first is associated with the old, second associated with the middle, third associated with the upper. So write Homo erectus, HOMO, Homo erectus. And see, this is not a case of linear evolution. Homo erectus reaching their own climax, Homo sapiens coming from somewhere else. It is not that ki Homo erectus paving way for Homo sapiens. You must have heard of ki man have evolved out of monkeys, but then why monkeys are not evolving as human beings? They are still monkey, isn't it? So the simple answer to this, the complexities of evolution is, we do not have linear evolution. We have what we can say parallels. So they are our, what we can say, they are our fellow travelers in the journey of evolution. They are not our, or we are not their descendants. They have their destiny, we have our destiny. Likewise, Homo erectus, and after Homo erectus, who dominated? We have lot of traces of conflicts also between archaic human species. So human existence was never very peaceful kind of existence. So Homo erectus were basically destroyed by what we can say Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens and Homo sapiens, two times sapiens. The last one is also known as, here in right in bracket, modern man. So it means one important feature or attribute of the Paleolithic is that the human beings were still evolving. Homo erectus, Homo sapiens and Homo sapiens sapiens. Homo sapiens sapiens considered as the modern man. So we all are sitting here, can be called Homo sapiens sapiens. How many of you are Homo erectus? Is there anyone? No. Is the journey of evolution stopped now? Are we going to have some aliens now superseding the human race on this planet Earth? Or it's AI which is going to do the same thing for us? There is something which is known as artificial intelligence. The only hope is that it still remains artificial, not original, isn't it? So it cannot replace human mind. It can organize things faster, but it can't be creative enough to generate new things and to take initiatives. It can replicate only, isn't it? How many of you are engineers here working with AI, artificial intelligence? Am I right in this perception, or do you want to correct me? Do you people have intention to replace human mind also in some future? Remote future? Distant? No. Then if so, we are not going to forgive you, okay? We Homo sapiens are not going to forgive you for finding what we can say an alternative for human brain, isn't it? So modern man. Now don't you think there is tremendous improvement in terms of human resources? Now in what way archaic species, earlier species are called archaic species. Archaic is a general term for the older things. We can also talk about archaic approaches, that is older approaches. So what is the difference between more developed, more sophisticated and archaic human species? So these differences can be noticed, what we can say, mainly in terms of what is known as the cranial capacity. It is something like modern cars, 800 cc, 1000 cc, then 1500 cc. Likewise, in our brain also, we have some space, cranial, gray matter perhaps. So, larger size of the brain. That is one feature. Second is what? Greater bodily flexibilities. Bodies became more flexible. Appearance became more gracile. Not robust. Archaic species were more robust. So those people who go to gym to have a more robust kind of appearance, basically, they want to reverse what we can say, the process of evolution. And those people who are little, cute, small, don't look at me, they represent what we can say the more advanced human species or the more advanced stages of development. Is it so? Not so? Okay. So, bodily flexibilities. Now, bodily flexibility is required for performing more delicate tasks, more complicated and delicate tasks. You cannot perform with what we can say rigid postures and rigid bodily parts. So, we have now new species more resourceful than others. Understand this? Then what else do you want to know about the prehistory? I don't know. I have forgotten everything. I have that disease which Amir Khan had in the movie Ghazni. So I don't know what to do the next. Climate. Okay, thanks for reminding me of the climate. Write the next point. And next point is going to be about climate and climatic conditions. Right throughout the Paleolithic. Throughout the Paleolithic means all the subcultural phases. Throughout the Paleolithic, we find the subsistence of or continuation of subsistence of the help me with the spelling of Pleistocene. P-L-I-E or E-I? E-I, okay. Thank you. Pleistocene, yes. Pleistocene age. This is a geological age. So see, history deals with the past. I think we started our discussion with this contention in the previous class. But which past? Historical past, not geological past. But when we find this kind of ages like Holocene, Pleistocene, and before that we have so many ages till Cambrian, Precambrian. Some of you may be knowing about these things. So only the two latest phases are important historically. They are important historically. One is Pleistocene and another in which we are living right now is called Holocene. Because these two are associated with the development of what is known as culture. If we go beyond these two phases, we do not find traces of cultural development, and so we do not find history. So the historical past overlaps with two latest phases of the geological past. Is this position clear? Otherwise, we all know past has no limit. We can go back to Big Bang also. You must be knowing about Big Bang. When we find, according to Stephen Hawking, origin of time and space both at the same time. So, these two. So, Paleolithic is continuing with Pleistocene. Now, what kind of climate is Pleistocene? Any idea on the basis of your knowledge of geography, geology, and other disciplines? In bracket, you can also write Ice Age. Now you know about this era, Ice Age. You may have watched some movies also, particularly made by Hollywood, not by Bollywood. Bollywood is not that creative. We have our own themes, you know, falling in love and what, convincing the parents of the. We have our own priorities. We hardly bother about ice ages or climate change or, you know, environmental degradation. So here psychological complexities and societal complexities are also not important for us. We just have very fixed priorities in our movies. I think the same is the case with this wood also, which is known as Tollywood, no? Yes. So, what are the characteristics of Ice Age and what kind of life is possible in the Ice Age? This is what we need to understand. So, do you know about anything related to this age and how this age has been conceptualized by the geologist? See, there is a very famous historian. You can write such additional details on margins, whose name is D.D. Kosambi. He is a historian, very famous historian. And this very famous historian was not a historian, he was a mathematician. In the mathematics department of my university, which I am not going to tell you. And this mathematician taught historians how to write history. So those people who come up very helplessly to seek help, sir, I have never studied history. It's okay. If you have never studied history, that is okay. You are going to find this discipline difficult only when we are going to approach it in a wrong way. It's a very scientific discipline. And we have many scientists turned historians. One such leading historian is D.D. Kosambi, who is the pioneer of Marxist history writing in India. And all the big names of Indian history you may be aware of, like Romila Thapar, some of you may be knowing, Irfan Habib, D.N. Jha. All these big historians are seen as disciples of D.D. Kosambi because it was he who introduced what is known as the Marxist historiography based on dialectical materialism. So don't feel helpless when, at times it happens that people from scientific, technological background, engineers, doctors, say we have never studied history. Whatever you have studied is part of history because history is not a discipline. History is the name of an approach. So I think in political science we have subject matter fixed, isn't it? It is about a state. It is about what? Ruling classes. It is about political processes, methods. In economy also, it is about agriculture, craft, trade. Do you find any such fixed subject matter for history? Just find any average book on history and you can find it to be what? Including all aspects of life. So from ideology to technology. That's why history is not a discipline. Any history graduate here to be offended by this observation? If I say history is not a discipline, science is also not a discipline, isn't it? Science is basically name of an approach that is based on what is known as empiricism, positivism, in which we acquire knowledge by observation, measurement and analysis. So when we follow that method in understanding the nature or for acquiring knowledge about the nature, we have the natural sciences. And when the same method is used for acquiring the knowledge about society, we have the social sciences. And in most of the disciplines, you can find or you can notice some debates and discussions whether the subject is science or art, or whether it is part of social sciences. Have you seen this kind of chapters in books? And we have universal conclusion that we are also science because we follow the same method. But since our subject matter is very complicated, our predictions and our projections are not as exact as we find in the natural sciences. So the way science is not a subject, it is basically a method. We can use this method to understand the nature, to understand the culture. Likewise, history is not a discipline, history is a method. So when we study political life, we try to understand political life with historical approach. We have political history. And when we try to understand economic life with historical method, that is called economic history. And we have not only political and economic, but also socio-cultural history. History of technology was also one of my specialization in PG days. So those people who think that they have some disadvantages because they don't have history background should know one thing, that history is not a discipline. It is basically an approach that is required elsewhere also. Second thing, whatever you have studied, that is part of history. That is not beyond history. So if you are an engineer, it's okay. All those techniques and tools, part of Indian history. The entire GS is going to be part of Indian history. What is your GS syllabus today? And what we study in history today had been part of what? GS of the previous days, isn't it? Because in GS also we study almost everything. In history also we study almost everything. So there is a very, what we can say, organic relation between history and GS, that history covers almost all aspects of the general studies. So you can perceive history as a tool, not as a task. Otherwise, most of the time, it has become fashionable to present oneself as ignorant of history, and so more advanced, more progressive. That is not the case. If you don't know history, that simply means you don't know about your location in the space, your location in the time, your position in the culture. And in this situation, you cannot take better decisions than others, as simple as this. So don't perceive this subject as a task. Rather try to perceive this subject as a tool. Even geography is a tool for you. Because all these are facilitating what? A comprehensive understanding of human existence, nothing else. And that is the preparation. So, D.D. Kosambi, who is pioneer of Marxist history writing, was not a historian. He was a mathematician. And he is known in history for few things. Like, as we discussed, Marxist historiography. Second thing, he is also known for what we can say, we are writing these things on margin. Incidentally, context-wise, we are talking about what is known as ethnographical studies. Now, what are ethnographical studies in history? So, ethnographical studies involve the study of primitive social groups, tribal groups, forest communities, in order to understand the pattern of life in the Paleolithic time or in the prehistoric time. We can also call it anthropological approach to history. And while propounding this approach, he talked about LIVING, living history. This is the concept he has given. If you are interested in history, history is still living with us. Because it is not about time, it is about stages of cultural development. So even today we find some people living at those stages of cultural development in which we are interested. So if you want to know what was the life and what were, since historical reconstruction is always subject to the availability of sources. So if you want to know about the Paleolithic moving communities and tribal groups, go to the forest, you can still find people at the same stage of cultural development. Try to understand them, and this will give you some insight into what is known as the Paleolithic life. That is life of hunters and food gatherers. Understand this? If you want to understand the life of early agricultural and farming communities, go and study those people who have just started witnessing some sort of transition towards agriculture. In many areas we can have this kind of developments, and that will give you insight into what happened in the past at similar stages of cultural development. This is the concept of living history. This is called ethnographical approach. This can also be called as anthropological approach. Is this understood? Now, this man talked about living history, living past. Past is living with us. In terms of stages of cultural development, we can use this concept to understand LIVING, living Pleistocene, living ice age with us. Ice age is still living with us. Can you tell me the areas? North Pole and the South Pole. Now imagine your life at both these poles. What kind of life is possible? What kind of resources are available? What kind of problems are posed by those ice sheets? Can you imagine the life at poles? What kind of life? Very friendly kind of? No. Hostile? Human habitation? Difficult or not? Difficult. What about resources to subsist upon? What kind of animals? Don't forget Darwin and his environmental adaptation. So what kind of animals are there? Hyderabad is a place which is known for biryani. Have you ever tasted polar bear biryani? No. What is the reason? Polar bear not available? Isn't it? Otherwise, you can have polar bear biryani too, in the light of your fondness for biryani. Any attempt to have faculty biryani? No. No, you are not like that. So, but then the problem is, see, today the whole world is what? Interconnected. It is not that poles are distantly located and that's why we don't have polar biryani. It is simply because those animals are not fit for consumption. Why? Because first thing that they are fatty, heavy creatures with very strong bones, thick skinned, hairy, is not fit for human consumption. So if we take note of floral resources, faunal resources, we have giant sized animals with what we can say fatty layers and thick skinned and hairy appearance. Now if we take note of what we can say floral resources, so can we have rice cultivation on poles, wheat cultivation on poles? So what kind of resources available? Something which is called algae kind of thing, no? Greeny patches on the ice sheets. So if you are interested in protein, you have to lie down on the ground in order to consume those greeny patches, isn't it? So survival difficult or not? I hope you understand now why the pace of development was so slow. By the way, what about rainfall? Rainfall possible on poles. Maximum rainfall on poles or on equator. On equator. Why not on poles? No moisture, no water. Hydrological cycle, you must be knowing there is something that is called hydrological cycle. That involves what? Evaporation, condensation, precipitation. And for evaporation we need what? Warm climate or what we can say cold climate. Warm climate, isn't it? So it is something now very clear that life was very difficult in the ice age. Now two features are generally highlighted. Help me with the spelling again. Pleistocene, okay. Pleistocene is characterized first by that it was cold and dry. When it is cold, it is going to be dry also. Moisture retention capacity of the air increases or decreases with what? A temperature, isn't it? And the second is alternate phases of what we can say glaciation, that is formation of ice crystals, and what is known as interglaciation. Glaciation and interglaciation. How many phases of glaciation and how many phases of interglaciation? Let this issue be debated and discussed by the geologists and geographers and climatologists. We have limited concerns here. We are not interested in climate, we are interested in resources offered by this climate, opportunities created by this climate. Clear? So now imagine a situation, life was like this. This is equator and this is what? North Pole and this is the South Pole. Today we have this way. Now imagine a situation ki ice sheets which are confined to the poles now, they are melting now because of our activities. They covered almost the entire zone that is called temperate zone, isn't it? That is, except the areas which are known as equatorial areas, the whole surface of the earth was covered with ice sheets. So when we have this situation, we have already seen that floral and faunal resources may be very limited. Surface of the earth is also covered under ice sheets. That simply means resources of the earth are locked under ice sheets. And in colder climate, we cannot also expect organic activities on large scale. Evolution of new plants, new species may also be blocked because of this, isn't it? Now, this was the life, but when we have phases which are known as interglaciation, it is assumed that ice melted. Ice melted. Getting this? With this, we can have more and more space for human habitation, more favorable climate, and some opportunities also for the human beings to expand their settlements or areas of habitation. You must be knowing a phenomenon that is known as out of Africa phenomenon. Out of Africa. It is written like this or whatever. Out of Africa means around 60,000 years earlier, we have Homo sapiens moving out from Africa and reaching the different parts of the world, reaching Europe to have conflict with the Neanderthals, which were wiped out by the Homo sapiens, something like this. And then Homo sapiens came to dominate this planet in different parts of the world. So they also have their origin where? In the equator areas. Even today we have maximum biodiversity in this area. Human evolution took place mainly in this area. Why? Because climate was more friendly in this area. Go beyond these areas and you will have nature very hostile, resources very limited, opportunities compromised. Is this question clear? Now, when we have phases of interglaciation, So we have more and more space available, more opportunities available, more resources available. And then once again we have what? Glaciation. So don't you think it was hide and seek kind of game with the nature played by the human beings in the Paleolithic era? Whenever we have expansion of ice sheets or encroachment from the poles, we have contraction of the areas of human habitation. And when we have expansion of the areas of what we can say human habitation, we have contraction of the ice sheets. So this way continued we find in the phases which are known as glaciation and interglaciation. There are some climatologists who believe that the era in which we are living is just one of the interglaciatory phases. It is not Holocene. It should not be identified as a distinct phase. We are still in the Pleistocene era, and the phase which has become so favorable for us that we have used the resources of Earth to the extent of creating the crisis of climate. This is because we are living in a interglaciatory phase, and so in future there may be a phase of glaciation, and this whole achievement of the human beings in the last 10,000 years can be wiped out. So this is also things are perceived. So I hope you understand the life in the Paleolithic era. So write in few lines what we have written. What is the last thing that we have written? Pleistocene era, right? During this era, the climate was during this era, the climate was very, very harsh, Harsh. Climate was very harsh, characterized by an extremely cold, characterized by an extremely cold and dry climate. Extremely cold and dry climate with no or little maybe with no rainfall. In most parts of the world. More favorable conditions for human existence can be expected. More favorable conditions for human existence can be expected only in the equatorial areas receiving what? Direct sun rays straight. Equatorial areas, right? The surface of the earth, and so the resources of the earth, the surface of the earth, and so the resources of the earth were covered or locked, LOCKED, were covered or locked. And see, these topics are also important for essay writing. Climate is still changing in our time, and we all have the similar concerns, isn't it? But that time climate change was going to create opportunities, unlock resources, and this time climate change is something with what we can say reverse consequences, isn't it? So what is the relation between climate, resources, development? All these things are always important topics for us. So what is the last line that we have written here? Locked what? Read the whole sentence. Locked under ice sheets. Under ice sheets. Floral and faunal. Floral. 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 And faunal resources. Floral and faunal resources were also not fit for fit for human consumption. That is just a matter of degree, not fit for human consumption. Then what kind of troubles, right? The Pleistocene was also characterized by alternate phases of the Pleistocene was also characterized by alternate phases of glaciation and interglaciation. Glaciation and interglaciation. And so in the warmer phases of interglaciation, life might have been a little easier for the humankind. Otherwise, we understand. Now imagine your life in such situation, and many statements you can judge on your own whether correct or incorrect. So which of the following statement is correct about Paleolithic? Question. The first statement. Beginning of agriculture. Correct or incorrect? Incorrect. Domestication of animals. Getting this idea? Then do you need break? What has been the tradition? What has been the convention? I don't want to look villain in your eyes. If you have the traditional break, I am going to respect that. But if no break, then we can continue with the same no break. I just want to follow what was the situation here. Otherwise, I am known for breaking the tradition of break. So I think this is the beginning for some of you, no? In this batch, how many of you have recently joined? Just joined. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So now the future generation will decide what to do. The older ones have been spoiled, no, with some unhealthy habits like breaks. So how many of you support the idea of break? And what if I break the tradition then? We have already started doing that, okay? We have already started doing that. See what was the situation? So please, the previous batches people, you people have already been spoiled. Don't spoil the new kids, okay? Learn from them. See how motivated they are. They don't want break, isn't it? Our new customers don't want break. So our older customers, they need to improve themselves. They have now competition. So can we continue? No. Okay. Let us have a break for 10 to 15 minutes and then we are going to. Is it appropriate time for break? Okay. 10 to 15 minutes and then we can talk about all this Paleolithic and all. So, how was your break? Break with breakfast or only tea? Only tea. And tea, which tea? Irani tea, no? No. No, there is a special name for this tea. Irani chai, Irani chai. Chai is Hindi word, no? Popular. Okay. And then combined with which biscuit? Osmania biscuit. So we are talking about Paleolithic and we talked about the climate. We talked about the resources. We talked about the difficulties associated with Paleolithic existence, mainly created by a harsh kind of climate. What is the last thing that we have written? Okay. Now after this issue, we have to take note of, you tell me what? Subsistence pattern. Now what is expected in this harsh climate? So write the next point. Throughout the Paleolithic, that is all the subcultural phases, throughout the next point, throughout the Paleolithic, the subsistence was based on primitive activities like hunting, comma, food gathering, and hunting, food gathering, and scavenging. Hunting, food gathering, and scavenging. What is scavenging in bracket, right? Subsisting on the flesh, flesh, flesh of dead animals. That is called scavenging. Now, how many of you are hunters? Raise your hands. Hunters of this class, raise your hands. How many of you are food gatherers? None of you. And how many of you are scavengers? See, what do you think? these subsistence strategies are still used or not by human beings. That is called continuity. We are still hunters, food gatherers also. We can find communities still subsisting on hunting and food gathering. I'm not talking about more civilized part or the so-called mainstream, in which hunting is what? Not a subsistence strategy, but maybe an adventure or entertainment. But now governments are quite proactive in preventing these kind of activities in the name of what is called preservation or conservation, isn't it? And food gathering communities, have you noticed in countryside, rural areas, in the harvesting seasons? In my area at least, I have noticed people, moving from one field to another just to find what we can say the leftover food grains. Have you seen this kind of communities even today? Scavengers do exist, and we find some communities still with little reservation in what we can say eating the flesh of dead animals. Though mostly we kill animals for us, and I am talking about this tendency in a state which is particularly known for its non-vegetarian traditions. Telangana perhaps is the most non-vegetarian state in the country. Is it so? Comparatively. Okay, so how many of you are, I'm not going to ask who is a non-vegetarian, because there is a presumption that all of you are. So the distinction belongs to those people who are purely vegetarian. So anyone who is here and who is purely vegetarian, see, they are in micro-minority position, not even a minority position. And rest of you, all of you, enjoy the biryani and halim and all those dishes. And see, your city Hyderabad has an impression that those who are in Hyderabad, outsiders believe that must be eating biryani. So if I call any friend and if I tell them that I am in Hyderabad, the first expression is that then you must be enjoying biryani, But there is a harsh truth related to this. I don't like your biryani. Whenever I have tried, I have felt some sort of disappointment. I don't know why. So now it is up to you to, what we can say, remove this misconception. How you are going to do that, you decide. You can change my perception related to Hyderabadi biryani. So, hunting, food gathering and scavenging, primitive subsistence strategies throughout the Paleolithic. Then you tell me what should be the next. I don't know, I told you I have a disease, I forget things. So you are going to remind me. Settlement pattern. So now the next few points are going to be related to different aspects of the subsistence pattern. Clear? So write the next point. The Paleolithic tools or sites. The Paleolithic tools or sites have been, the Paleolithic tools or sites have been found. This is about geographical distribution. Found throughout the subcontinent. Throughout the subcontinent, except the North Indian plains. Except the North Indian plains. In plain areas, we generally do not find Paleolithic settlements. And here, North Indian plains consist of three major river basins: Indus, the Ganges, and the Brahmaputra. Clear? Except the North Indian plains, the north eastern regions. the northeastern regions, after Gangetic Plains, the northeastern regions and the Malabar coast. So we do not find Paleolithic evidence or evidence of Paleolithic habitation in the Malabar areas, in the northeastern areas, and in the Gangetic and the Indus plains. Now they are not found in the Gangetic and the Indus plains is quite understandable, isn't it? Because lack of stones or resources required by them. But how to explain their absence in the northeast and the Malabar coast? No convincing explanation can be offered. We understand that for such a remote part of the human existence, we don't have data. We don't have the sources to have a complete picture. But still we have some explanations. We talked about interglaciation. Do you remember? And it is said that whatever little progress was made by the Paleolithic people made mainly during the phases of interglaciation. And there are people who say that the kind of climate expected in the phase of interglaciation was similar to what we today call Holocene. So in those phases of interglaciation, we can expect a climate in which we are living. And an important feature or characteristic of this climate is in Indian subcontinent, excessive rainfall in these two areas, Malabar coast and also the northeastern areas. So there is one explanation, and nowadays they are asking questions like this: a statement, assertion, reasoning. UPSC has been more inclined now in the recent past to ask this kind of statement based questions. So one possible explanation is due to heavier rainfall in these two areas, the vegetation was so thick that it prevented the human habitation. You can agree, you can disagree, but this is how we have explanations. Clear? Then next point, right? The Paleolithic sites, tools or settlements, the Paleolithic sites, tools or settlements have been, this is about ecological, have been found mainly in the upper river basins. Now, I think if you go through the question papers of the previous year itself, they have asked questions related to connection between geography and history. The very first question in your main examination in the first paper is about this, a connection. Answer to these questions cannot be based on any single topic or any single. We have to scan throughout the history to find the role of geography in determining what we can say the human existence and also the human conflicts. So you must be knowing about different ecological systems noticed along the course of a river. Rivers generally have their origin in hilly areas, no? You may be knowing about the concepts like water divide, catchment areas, tributaries, U-shaped valleys, V-shaped valleys, isn't it? And then we have, suppose this is a river going to the sea. This is lower basin. Here we have distributaries, deltaic areas. This is what we can say middle basin. And these three represent different ecological systems: upper river basin, middle and the lower. Resources are different, subsistence patterns are different. So today the kind of difference we notice in the life of the people of Himachal Pradesh and Bengal, don't you think can be explained on the basis of different ecological systems? So what is the subsistence pattern in Bengal? That is mainly based on what? Fishing and rice cultivation, isn't it? And if you go to those upper states like Uttarakhand and Himachal, then people are different, their subsistence pattern is different. Middle Gangetic Basin, some differences can be noticed. So in the Paleolithic time, what we find is that we still do not find those settlements in these areas, but only in these areas. Most of the time, the caves which were occupied by the Paleolithic man have been found, what we can say, in the upper river basins, near some important rivers, or what we can say. There is a place I remember, and there are many places perhaps in your state, Andhra and Telangana, which are known for Paleolithic habitation. So how many of you have visited some caves, Paleolithic caves? Like there is a cave I remember, Bora caves. Bora, no? Which area? Near Visakhapatnam. But area is not Visakhapatnam. Ah, AR something like this. So, and there is one more place that is called Kurnool. Kurnool or Kurnool? Which? Kurnool. Kurnool. Okay, we have different ways to pronounce things. India is a land of cultural diversity. So, Kurnool caves. So, do you find some rivers at Kurnool also? No. Generally, limestone formations, limestone caves, erosion, corrosion, and formation of natural caves. And those caves were occupied by the early human beings in the upper river basins. Stones were available, and what we can say, all resources which were needed by them were available in these areas. So they have been found mostly, what we have written, in the upper river basins. Then write the next point. And that is going to be about habitational structures. So right, in the Paleolithic age, we do not find, in the Paleolithic age, we do not find traces of, we do not find the traces of artificial intelligence, sorry, artificial dwelling units. Artificial dwelling units, that is habitational structures. And the man lived in, be more gender sensitive, right? Human beings lived in, man lived in natural caves and rock shelters. Natural caves and rock shelters. Natural caves and rock shelters. We also find traces of some, open camp sites, and TREE, tree dwellings. How many of you have ever attempted tree dwellings? Today these are luxuries, isn't it? We pay for this kind of experiences and exposure, and something that was naturally available to the Paleolithic man. Today we earn money facing so many difficulties of our time, and then we try to spend some quality time. There is a concept of spending some quality time. And when we intend to spend some quality time, we go to the same forest and we try to live on the same trees, and to, what we can say, visit the same caves, and also to have some open campsites, isn't it? So, in which age life was better? Paleolithic or This one in the 21st century. This one is better. This one is better. Are you sure about it? Anyway. So open campsites, tree dwellings, and artificial dwelling units are not noticed. Now, can you tell me places where we have discovered these natural caves and rock shelters? Scattered throughout the country, mainly in the hilly areas, of course. But there is one site in India which is particularly known for rock shelters and natural caves. Can you tell me about that area? That is very famous also. That's why I am asking. Adamgarh. Maximum number of rock shelters have been discovered in this area, and first discovered by an archaeologist, V.S. Wakankar, in the year 1957, that is 10 years after the independence. So right here, such natural caves and rock shelters in the same point proceed. Such natural caves and rock shelters have been found throughout the country. Bora caves, Betam Cherla caves, there are so many, leave them. But the most important site is Bhimbetaka. But the most important site is Bhimbetaka, situated near Bhopal, in Madhya Pradesh. Situated near Bhopal in Madhya Pradesh, which has produced the maximum number of natural caves and rock shelters. Maximum number of natural caves and rock shelters in the subcontinent. First discovered by, continue writing in the same, first discovered by an archaeologist, V.S. Wakankar, in 1957. V.S. Wakankar in 1957. So don't you think it is a little surprising that even the British military commanders and explorers could not find these caves during almost 200 years of their rule, and we happened to find these caves only after they left India and 10 years after this. And this was an accidental discovery. This man was traveling from Bhopal to Itarsi in train, and as usual he was looking outside the window and he noticed something unusual. He got down on the next station, came back and became immortal in history. This is how we find at times some achievements and some discoveries by chance or by some happenings, isn't it? So this much about those major points. Now what about others? Some other developments also we can notice during this phase. So write the next point. In the upper Paleolithic age, the latest of the Paleolithic, in the upper Paleolithic age, we find the earliest traces of course, this time we have modern man, earliest traces of the rock paintings. Have you ever heard of rock paintings? See, so rock paintings in this subcontinent mainly belong to the Mesolithic, that is the next phase of cultural development. But the beginning of rock painting we can notice even in the Upper Paleolithic. Clear? So, let me ask one question. Which of the following associated with the modern man? A. Paintings. B. Blades and burins. C. Both A and B. D. Neither A nor B. Only A? No. C. Both A and B. Modern man appeared, so anything that happened in the Upper Paleolithic can be attributed to modern man. Is this question clear? Then write the next point. In the Upper Paleolithic age, we also notice a very remarkable development. In the Upper Paleolithic age, we also notice the earliest use of I am going to write something HEARTH How do you pronounce it? Hearth, hearth, multiple ways. So hearth, fire. Hearth, fire. Now hearth, fire is invented, fire was invented or discovered? Discovered or invented? Fire was always there. And fire, what we can say, was the first thing that we find on this planet Earth when it got separated from the sun, isn't it? So it is not about discovery or invention. Basically, when we talk about fire, air was also not discovered. I hope you understand this. This is natural. So we talk about the use of fire. And when we talk about the use of fire, of course, we are talking not about now the wildfire, which was always there, but domestic fire or disciplined use of fire. And this is nothing but a device to discipline fire. And here again we have something related to your estate. So right here, this has been noticed. This has been noticed in the Kurnool caves. Kurnool, write the way you like. Kurnool caves. So earliest use of fire or hearth fire or disciplined use of fire noticed at Kurnool, which is in Andhra or in Telangana? Which is in Andhra. And here there is a cave whose name is mentioned in the textbooks, but I don't find that on Google. Because one day I tried to visit that cave, but I found some different name for that cave. But in textbooks we find mention of a name. I am writing this name and you have to read it aloud and in chorus together. Okay, now your time starts now. Muchatta Chintamani Gavi. Gavi is perhaps a word for caves. Gavi. And that is Chintamani. And before Chintamani we have Muchatta. So the full name is Muchatta Chintamani Gavi. And in this cave we have the earliest evidence of hearth fire. And that is a part of the Kurnool caves. Clear? Right, in the same cave, whose name is very difficult, in the same cave we also find we also find exceptional use of exceptional use of exceptional use of bone tools. So people here in this part were non-vegetarian from the very beginning. So it's all about ecology, environment. Bone tools at the upper Paleolithic stage. At the upper Paleolithic stage. Here the story is similar to that of painting. Painting mainly belongs to the Mesolithic, but its beginning in the upper Paleolithic. Generally, Mesolithic is associated with the use of bone tools in India. Elsewhere in world archaeology, bone tools are found at the upper Paleolithic stage. But in India too, we have an exceptional evidence of the use of bone tools at the upper Paleolithic, and here also the Kurnool caves are important. So three rare developments. First, hearth fire. Second, painting. Third, bone tools. Is this understood? Now let us talk about Mesolithic, the next cultural stage. Topic changed. We are still in the prehistoric, and we have to take note of the Mesolithic, the next phase of the Stone Age after Paleolithic. This is also known as Middle Stone Age. Another name for this is the Middle Stone Age, and we have one more name for this, that is called this one, Epipaleolithic. So write the first point here. Accepted as a phase of transition, that is from Paleolithic to Neolithic. Accepted as a phase of transition. The Mesolithic phase is the shortest, shortest. Mesolithic phase is the shortest of all the phases of the Stone Age, and things are so overlapping that there was a time when historians did not acknowledge it as a distinct phase, because Paleolithic continuing, Neolithic beginning, and in between we have for a very brief period of time which is identified as Mesolithic, the phase of transition. That chronologically, right in the same point, chronologically the Mesolithic age can be placed between, chronologically the Mesolithic age can be placed between 12,000 BC. Now I am changing this scale from BP to BC. 12,000 BC and 5,000 BC. 12,000 BC and 5,000 BC, and we have different data in the textbook, so don't worry about this precise dates. In Sri Lanka, Mesolithic stage is as old as 32,000. So here, this covers all the major sites related to the Mesolithic. Is this position clear? So this was about chronology. It is very brief and short phase, so subcultural phases, even if identified by historians, not important for us, so we can skip. Now the next thing is related to, you tell me, tools. So right here, the Mesolithic tools are known as, the Mesolithic tools are known as microliths. Have you ever heard of? Mesolithic tools are known as the microliths. Micro is a small, lith is a stone. Microliths, which are tools made of extremely small, tools made of extremely small stones, extremely small stones, mostly found in different, geometrical shapes, geometrical shapes. In the Mesolithic era or in the Mesolithic age, continue writing, we also notice some changes, very important changes. We also notice profuse use of, Profuse, profuse use of bone tools. The phase is also characterized by, now the third important thing, continuing the same point, the phase is also characterized by composite tools, and the earliest use of MISSILE, missile technique, and the earliest use of missile technique. Now, if we take note of the major points here related to the Mesolithic tools, the first we have written that we have tools called microliths. Second is bone tools. These are the new developments. Third, composite tools, and fourth, missile technology. Microliths we understood, the tools of extremely small sized stones. Bone tools also we understand because we all have bones in us. Now, what kind of tools are composite tools? Engineers here in this class, when two or more than two tools are combined for greater ease and efficiency. Getting this idea? Such tools are known as composite tools. For example, we can have a point, but if a bamboo stick is attached to this, so we have something that is called a spearhead. Can't we have now greater ease and efficiency? A striking power is increased or not? So we can have hand axes. What if a bamboo handle is fixed with hand axes? Two tools are combined. We can have greater ease and greater efficiency, isn't it? Now, the intriguing issue is the missile technology. Some of you may be thinking about missile technology. We have in the modern time missile man. Who is missile man? And then we have in modern warfare increasing use of missiles, isn't it? Now, what this missile technology was doing in the Mesolithic time, and that too without gunpowder. So, missile technology is simple technology in which we hit the target without physical contact. That is the concept. Hitting the target without a physical contact. In Indian tradition, you must be knowing two terms, Astra and Shastra. Have you ever heard of? Astra and Shastra. So Shastra is what? Sword is a Shastra because we use it by holding its handle. Getting this? And then what about bow and arrow? Basically, it was beginning of bow and arrow, hitting the target without physical contact. There may be tools which can be used as both astra and shastra. Can you name them? A knife can be used as both astra and a shastra, isn't it? We also have some traditional devices in homes like belan. Do you know belan? Belan is a device, kitchen device. Our mothers used belans at times against us. I don't know whether you have this kind of life experience or not. So belan can be used as astra and shastra both. And then what about that traditional patriarchal shoes, jutas, chappals? They can also be used as both astra and shastra. So in very primitive time, we cannot clearly create distinctions. Here missile technology was mainly about use of bow and arrow. So in the Mesolithic time, for the first time, we noticed this. Is this version clear? So these are some remarkable developments. Now tell me next, what do you want to know? I have forgotten, as I told you. Human species. Don't you think this point has been neutralized? What is the reason? Modern man already had appeared in the upper Paleolithic, and we are still the same. If we are different from them, we are different only in terms of our historical experience. In terms of bodily features, in terms of mental features, we are the same as our upper Paleolithic ancestors. The only thing which is creating the difference is our experience, that we have the benefit of accumulated wisdom of the human race. We have human experiences, we have knowledge more and more about the nature, more and more about the society and human beings. We have education system, and every new generation starts from the point where the older generation leave things, isn't it? This is what is ensured by the education system. So we are different from them only in our learning, only in our experiences, and only in history. Otherwise, biologically, psychologically, we are almost the same. So that point is no longer relevant. So then we can skip that and we can shift to the next consideration. And tell me the next. Climate. Yes, here we have some remarkable developments. So first you write and then we can understand that. So at the beginning of the Mesolithic, that was around 10,000, 12,000. The beginning of the Mesolithic age, the beginning of the Mesolithic age coincided with the onset of the Holocene, when the climate became two characteristics, warm, and when it became warm, it also became wet, warm and wet. Pleistocene had been cold and dry. Holocene, warm and wet. This is the central characteristic. Now, what kind of changes are expected when we have such changes in the climatic conditions in the human existence? Vegetation expected. Yes, vegetation expected. What else expected? New kind of flora and fauna expected. So, right, this led to the following. This climatic change led to the following. So if you're writing any essay on climate change now, and if you don't make references to this climate change, then your essay is no longer what up to the mark. Getting this idea? So climate change is very important topic. Climate change, resources, development, all these are very important considerations. So when the climate became warm and wet, what happened? Write the first point. More friendly living conditions. More friendly living conditions. More friendly living conditions and expansion of human habitation. Expansion of human habitation. Expansion of human habitation. Even beyond the equatorial regions. Even beyond the equatorial regions. Beyond the equator, more and more favorable climate or not? Less hostile. That is, in bracket you can write more living space. More living space, isn't it? Then write next point. See, write melting of the glaciers. Melting of the, don't write glaciers. Yes, glaciers also you can write, but also write ice sheets. Melting of the ice sheets and uncovering of or unlocking of the resources of the earth. Unlocking of the resources of the earth. So what will happen when we have melting of glaciers in a warmer climate? Write the next point. Beginning of the hydrological cycle. Beginning of the hydrological cycles, rather plural, because we understand that the climate of the world is very diverse and we do not have single system. So hydrological cycles in more and more areas, because we cannot say that in Paleolithic rainfall was completely missing. It may have been possible on the equator. Getting this? So beginning of the hydrological cycles and formation of water bodies. Formation of water bodies, rivers, lakes, etc. Formation of water bodies. If this is happening, then what will happen? See, ice, melting, evaporation, condensation, precipitation, hydrological cycle. So don't you think appearance of new resources now? Now we are going to have fish tikka, isn't it? We human beings with fish tikka and what? You understand? In fish, we have only fish tikka on. Fish curry also. Fish curry. What else? I think I am playing with your sentiments. Is it so? So write availability of fish tikka and fish curry. Okay, don't write this way. Write new resources. New resources. New resources in the form of fishery. Fishery समझते हो? Fishery in the form of FISHERY. So we are going to have new subsistence strategies also like fishing, but we are not going to write it here. We have our separate space for that. And then write next. Now can you imagine the surface of the earth exposed, and surface of the earth now, because of the melting of glaciers, exposed to two things. First, the sunlight and second the rainfall. Now what magic can be created because of the combination of this rainfall and sunlight both on the surface of the earth? What is expected? Photosynthesis, new organic activities, and appearance of new species of plants. Getting this idea? And new species of animals also because of environmental adaptability. Now animals became, let me tell you, smaller and swifter, and but of course capable of making what we can say running faster than earlier species. Have you ever heard of necessity is the mother of invention? Changing resource base required new tools or not? Can we understand why we have now composite tools and we also have missile technology? Because now the resources are changing, resource base is changing. So utilization needed new kind of tools. Necessity is the mother of inventions. And that is not only related to technology, that is also related to ideology that we are going to see later on. So right here, next point. Right, exposure of the surface of the earth, that is silica, surface of the earth to both sunlight and rainfall. Sunlight and rainfall, creating more favorable conditions for new types of creating more favorable conditions for new types of organic activities, new kind of organic activities, resulting in the appearance of new resources. It is usually believed that new resources, it is usually believed that most of the species of food grains used by human beings today or used by humankind today, most of the species of food grains used by human beings appeared during this time in their wild varieties, appeared during this time in their which varieties? Wild varieties, yet not cultivated, but new resources were now available. So wheat, paddy, gram, all these things, mainly because of the new climatic conditions. Then right, the animals became, and write it without looking at me, the animals became smaller, and swifter, SWIFTER. Don't you think that your faculties are also becoming smaller day by day? The old batches may be experiencing this. Earlier faculties were archaic, more primitive, giant sized, isn't it? Now you have more delicate, more developed, more sophisticated faculties, isn't it? So the evolution is evident in the class also, isn't it? Yes. And don't tell this to others. This is between you and me. Otherwise, they can hunt me without even bow and arrow. So, what we have just written is animals became a smaller and swifter, requiring new tools, requiring new tools, requiring new NEW, new tools for their new tools for their utilization, new tools for their utilization. Now imagine the old giant-sized animals and the heavier tools. Life must have been very difficult. Now we have lighter tools, running animals, missile technology. So life is changing. So climate change during this time created new resources, offered new opportunities, isn't it? So this much about the climate change. Now they can give you statements. Which of the following is associated or is not associated with the Mesolithic? Once we understand the logic, once we understand what is happening exactly at that time, so many statements, many observations, which we may not read specifically in books, but we can still make sound judgments whether they can be correct or incorrect. Is this position clear or not? So now what next after climate? You tell me. Subsistence. So right here, right? New subsistence strategies. New subsistence strategies. Older we know, hunting, food gathering and scavenging. New subsistence strategies like fishing, FISHING, fishing and domestication of animals, domestication of animals, in bracket right, animal husbandry. What is animal husbandry? When the husbands are treated like animals? No. I'm just trying to understand, I'm asking. So, animal husbandry. Husband is a term that is for what? Ownership, mastery. Isn't it? So, that is basically domestication of animals. Don't you think we have greater command on resources now? We the Homo sapiens on this planet Earth. Right? In the Indian subcontinent, in the Indian subcontinent, Adamgarh, some sites are coming up. Adamgarh, situated in Madhya Pradesh. Adamgarh situated in Madhya Pradesh, and Bagor situated in Rajasthan. Bagor situated in Rajasthan have produced the earliest evidence of the domestication of animals. Earliest evidence of the domestication of animals. These two sites, Adamgarh and Bagor. Clear? Of course, we find fish hooks from many places. So that shows we find a fishery also at this time. Now, what else to be known about these people? Settlement pattern. Here we are combining settlement pattern with others also. So series of points dealing with both the issues together. So right, next point. An increase in the population due to lack of family planning. An increase in the population, don't write due to lack of family planning. That is in our time, not in their time. That time, any increase in the human population was an increase in the human resource. That is more hands available, more and more labor available, and more capacity to utilize the natural resources. Getting this idea? So this time it is burden, that time it was an asset. Even this time we try to perceive our population as an asset. You must be knowing about the concepts like demographic dividends, which we never received. So, is it so? So don't write due to lack of family planning. There was no concept of family planning. We cannot impose our ideas upon the past. So simply write an increase in the population. But again, due to, don't write family planning, write due to more leisure time. Yes, due to more. This is written in the book, okay. This is more availability of more time, because now every time you are not supposed to what? Roaming and hunting. You have some moments of peace at your home also. And that is important for procreation. Getting this? So now every time you are hungry, you are not supposed to go in the forest and hunt. You have some animals in your home. Getting this? Which you can consume. Domestication of animals, more greater command on resources. So don't overstretch your imagination, simply write what you are writing. You have forgotten what to write. Yes, due to availability of more leisure time and comfortable life. Comfortable why? It is matter of degree only, because of greater command on resources and more comfortable life. So how do we know about this? Do we find any census data related to that time? No. So right, this is evident from, that is how population was increasing. This is evident from increasing number of, this is evident from increasing number of the Mesolithic settlements. Increasing number of the Mesolithic Mesolithic settlements, and their increasing sizes as well. And let us include the issue of geographical distribution in the same sentence. So sizes which have been noticed throughout the subcontinent, but mainly in the Belen Valley. Belen Valley is in North India. There is a river, perhaps a tributary to the river Jamuna, and that is near Allahabad, Prayagraj. So that basin, that is near Vindhyachal Parvat, you must be knowing. So Belen Valley. Then continue writing in the same. That the geographical distribution still remains. The geographical distribution still remains remains almost same. Almost same. Almost same as what? Same as Paleolithic. So mainly in the hilly areas and not in what we can say the North Indian plains or Malabar and Northeast areas. So remained same, but ecologically, a remarkable shift took place. Ecologically, a remarkable shift took place when 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 plains, Plains, when plains, in bracket you can write plains near the hills, not deep, plains near the hills. When plains two came to be, two came to be, two came to be inhabited, inhabited by the Mesolithic men. And here also the evidence is Belen Valley. Belen Valley, plain area situated near the hills. So now ecological shift is taking place, that not only in the upper river basins but also in the plain areas, though very limited still, but there is a new direction to the development. Clear? Then right, next point. The earliest evidence of last point is related to, see, this is hill, upper river basin. Beyond this, we can have plain areas. So historians have calculated that their base was still in what we can say in the hills, but some people migrated to the new areas, maybe in search of new resources like the new food grains which were appearing, and they got settled down in these areas, but they also had connection with the hilly people. There was rudimentary kind of trade also, that is forest resources and plain resources exchange. So this is ecological shift, no longer only in the upper river basins but also in the plain areas, but still not very remote, because then contact with the what we can say resources and the people resource base would be lost. So one day travel, historians generally can calculate how many distance we can cover in one day. Of course, not with aeroplanes and trains, paddle, that is 10 kilometers or 12 kilometers. Have you ever embarked upon any long march? So how many kilometers can be covered by a person in a single day? What is the speed of a normal walk? 4 or 5, something like this. So let us imagine 2 hours walk, 3 hours walk in the morning, and one has to return also. So 3 hours in the evening. So around 15 to 20 kilometers, not beyond this. Clear? This is what we have written as ecological shift, and here also evidence comes from the Belen Valley. In bracket you can write Belen Valley. Now write the next point. The earliest evidence of, now one more change is taking place. The earliest evidence of artificial, the earliest evidence of artificial dwelling units. The earliest evidence of artificial dwelling units. Again, evidence from Belen Valley, which is evident from, keep on writing, how do we know? So, which is evident from the discovery of, which is evident from the discovery of post holes. Discovery of post holes in the Belen Valley. post holes in the Belen Valley. Now, what kind of holes are post holes, and in what manner they suggest construction of artificial dwelling units? So, do you know about the huts, HUTS? We still make them, isn't it? So, in what way huts are made? We have two pillars, two posts, and then vertical, something like this, isn't it? And then we have a horizontal beam, and on this, some roof-like structure made of some flexible material like bamboo, tree twigs, wattle and daub, and we still practice this kind of things. I don't know whether you are familiar with this or not, but in the countryside, human habitation, for human habitation and also for animal habitation, now particularly for animal habitation, we use this kind of huts. Now, since roof is made of flexible material, so if that is projected, I cannot create 3D effect, but you can use your imagination. So some posts are also required both sides to provide support to both the ends of that roof like a thing. Have you ever seen this kind of things? Now the roof is gone, pillars and posts are also gone, but holes are still left. And the pattern we notice is something like this: two bigger holes, then a smaller holes around, and in between we have raised surface of the earth. So if we have this kind of discoveries, we can easily conclude that these holes once had pillars or posts to provide support to some roof-like structures. This is how indirectly we have inferred the artificial dwelling units. Is this understood? And here also the evidence is mainly from the Belen Valley in that area. I think we have written this, which is evident from the availability of a discovery of post holes in the Belen Valley. Add one more thing in the same point, right? It seems that their houses were made of, it seems that their houses were made of bamboo. Do you know bamboo? Bamboo has helped we the human beings a lot. So, bamboo, tree twigs, bamboo, tree, I don't know what kind of twigs are called tree twigs, and there is a term which is written like this: WATTLE, wattle and DAUB, wattle and daub, that is ghas foos kind of thing. Wattle and daub, DAUB, etc. Then write the next point, and that is also going to be very important. Right? The earliest evidence of, and here again Belen Valley, the earliest evidence of the earliest evidence of the burial system. Do you know about burial system? Have you ever been buried? So you are familiar with burial system without having been buried. You have buried others, I hope. So, burial system in bracket write: intentional disposal of the dead bodies. This is important. Intentional disposal of the dead bodies. Evidence again from the Belen Valley. Burial system, intentional disposal of the dead bodies. So what inferences can be made here? There are people now who feel themselves responsible even towards your dead body after your death, isn't it? So some family bonding, some emotional bonding, that is taking care of the dead bodies of the dead person, isn't it? So, but exactly we cannot infer. But what is important here is now we have intentional disposal of the dead bodies. It means now we can expect more complexities in the human relationships, more emotional bondages in the human relationship. Getting this idea? But we still cannot go to infer what we can say the institution of family, because institution of family is based on some other institutions like the marriage. Getting this? So we do not know whether they practiced anything like marriage or not, but we do find indications that they fell in love and they lived together and they died together. Today something that we plan, they have already done. So next point, that is very important, double burial. Earliest evidence of double burial. Now what is double burial? When two persons are buried together. And here we have a pattern, male, female of almost same age buried together. Now what kind of inferences again? Endless inferences. Now such coincidences are rare, that when we have two people dying together, isn't it? So there are some people who infer something like the system of sati, but then sati has its own ideological and philosophical foundation, so we cannot use the term sati. But it may be a case that one person died and the other either volunteered to die with that person or was killed by others and buried together. What is the case we exactly do not know, but there is one thing that is clear. There was some notion related to some permanent bond between two individuals, not to be broken even by the death. Or it may be we are romanticizing this because we have become romantic along evolution. It may simply be a case of accidental death, that two persons died together in some accidents. But then there is a pattern. There are many graves like this. And if that was the case, then why not two males only and two females only? Why only a male and female? This combination is also quite striking. Is this version clear? Leave aside inferences. Just remember double burial, and the safest conclusion is assumption of some permanent bond between two individuals. So right here, this indicates we are not inferring sati, not inferring marriage, okay? Some permanent bond between two, don't write two souls, write two individuals. Because we exactly do not know whether they were familiar with the idea of soul or not. And the body-soul divide, which we accentuate at times, may not be familiar to them. So simply write two permanent bond between two individuals. Then there is one more thing. Write grave goods for the first time. Grave goods. So remarkable changes are taking place in the Mesolithic time. What kind of goods are grave goods? We notice such grave goods in other cultures like Chalcolithic, in Indus Valley civilization also. So suppose if I die, so along with me my mobile, and that is very important because after death people may develop a altogether different kind of perception, because we all are hiding our realities, isn't it? We have a public face and then we have something that is called inner. And this device is very dangerous device. I hope you understand this. It is recording all your activities. So suppose if I die, so my mobile, my purse, my watch, this glass, this thermos, this mic, that camera, and some of you too. Yes, we have this kind of practices later on. Even kings died, all their slaves and wives, they were buried together. So some of you buried together. Now suppose after 1000 years, that is in the first quarter of 31st century, our graves are discovered. So historians of that time can make some intelligent guesses related to the existence in our time, isn't it? If the teaching method is still the same, they can make an inference. This person seems to be what? A teacher, isn't it? And those who are buried along with him must have been his customers. Getting this idea? So how many of you are willing to be buried along with me? I should not ask this dangerous question in the very beginning of our relationship. I am demanding too much. So, but I hope you understand the concept of grave goods. Grave goods have played very important role in throwing light on the past. That is, social differentiation also reflected, cultural practices also reflected. All these things are very important sources now. So now we can say that past is becoming more visible because of this grave goods. Then generally the articles of day-to-day use buried along with the dead bodies. We notice it in almost all the older societies, but the beginning can be noticed in the Mesolithic time. Here again, what inferences can be made? At least one inference we can make. There was some sort of belief in the continuation of life even after death. Form of continuation we do not know. Whether they contemplated body-soul divide and they contemplated only the continuation of soul or both body and soul, or they were contemplating some sort of cycles of birth and death or hell or heaven, we do not know. But one thing is clear, there was a tendency not to look at the death as an end. So death not an end, life may continue even after death, and the person who is dead now may need the same belongings and the same articles which he needed during his lifetime. So write just one line here, that this indicates, the grave goods indicate some sort of belief. Exactly what sort of we don't know. Some sort of belief in the continuation of the class even after 11 p.m. Sorry, 11 a.m. Okay, don't write this way, write this way. Continuation of the life even after death. Even after death. And thanks for this extraordinary cooperation. It's already 11:27. Thank you so much. The class is over.